The 2023 AFC Championship will go down as one of the weirdest officiated games of all time, with there being 6 to 7 calls in the fourth quarter that all went in the Chiefs' direction, leading to the Bengals' loss. The question is the NFL rigged? It's put in as entertainment, so it is not illegal for the NFL to rig games, making it very possible that they do. Throughout this video, we're going to look at a couple clips of why the AFC Championship could have been rigged, some motives for the referees to rig the game, and reasons why people think the NFL is rigged in general. Now, I'm not saying it is rigged, but some of these calls are pretty questionable, and honestly, I would not be surprised if it was rigged. We saw in the NBA, Tim Donaghy was rigging games. The refs could totally be in on it. The first clip we're going to take a look at is Frank Clark hitting Joe Burrow 3 or 4 steps after. Now, it is a light hit, but this is the final drive the Bengals had, and this is clearly roughing the passer. I mean, he takes 2 or 3 steps and then hits him in the chest. To be honest, if this was Pat Mahomes and they did the same thing, I would not be surprised if this was called. As you can see, it's 1, 2, 3, push. He falls over, and Joe Burrow even looks to the ref like, how is that not roughing the passer? It was late and intentional. It wasn't on accident. This is just one of the calls that was missed towards the end of the game. The next one is on the crucial punt return that put Kansas City in great field position. As you can see, the gunner clearly gets hit in the back. This is an easy call for the referee. He easily gets pushed in the back, and there's no excuse for this not to be called. The punt return even went to that direction, and this punt return was crucial in lining up the Chiefs for their game-ending field goal. The next play we're going to look at is the most controversial play, I believe, ever in football. As you can see, the referee does try and stop the play, but he doesn't blow his whistle. He doesn't do anything. He just kind of runs in. Now let me ask you this. If this was a touchdown, do you think they're calling that back? Do you think at Arrowhead Stadium they're going to call back a touchdown because the referee kind of stopped the play? No. Not even a little bit. Even if this is in Cincinnati, this isn't standing. This is an atrocious call. I don't believe a team has ever gotten a redo on a third down for no reason like this ever before, and I don't think this will ever happen again. This is one of the most blatantly terrible calls I've ever seen in any sport in my lifetime. The next clip we're going to look at is the final play that put the Chiefs in field goal range. Now, there are 2 missed holding calls, which are bad enough, but the late hit. Now, it is very obviously a late hit. A questionable one, though. If that's Justin Fields, is that being called? No. A similar play happened like that to Joe Mixon. Honestly, the one to Joe Mixon was even worse, and it wasn't called. So let me ask you this. Is it just because it was a quarterback? And the answer to that is a resounding yes. Once again, we're going to look at the holding calls. Runs out of the pocket. Tries to get extra yards, and Pratt hits him. It's a dumb mistake by a good player. I don't think that's a 15-yard penalty. Maybe a 5 to 10-yard penalty. And now we're going to look at a similar play earlier in the game from Joe Mixon, who is even farther out of bounds, and it isn't called. So, why is it not called? As you can see, Joe Burrow throws it to Joe Mixon, who gets tackled out of bounds and is hit extremely late. Way later than Pat Mahomes. There's 2 refs standing right next to it. Nothing. Now, I'm not trying to say that Pat Mahomes one wasn't a late hit, because it was. But this is a late hit as well. So my question is, why isn't it being called the same at all? The next play is the intentional grounding called on Joe Burrow on the final drive. And I don't believe this is intentional grounding either, as there is a running back in the area, and he's being hit while he's thrown. It's not like he just spikes it at the ground. There's a guy probably 2 to 3 feet ahead of him. Now, could this be intentional grounding? Yes. Is this that terrible of a call? No. But along with the 5 to 6 other calls throughout the game, it just adds on to the very questionable and decisive calls that led to the Chiefs' victory. The head referee of this game was also the same referee in the Super Bowl last year, which, if you remember, had a very questionable PI call down the stretch, which we're going to look at, along with no false start being called, even though it's a late snap, and then thrown at Logan Wilson, and apparently that's PI. A decisive call that ended in a Rams victory. This is 2 years in a row that the Bengals seem to have been cheated out of games. So let's ask ourselves the question. Could this game have been rigged? And why would it have been rigged in general? Now, there were some very questionable calls in the 49ers-Eagles games. But here's the thing. Brock Purdy got hurt. The 49ers, once Brock Purdy went down, had no chance. No disrespect to Josh Johnson, but he's not a Super Bowl quarterback. Now, it does help that the Chiefs would have a revenge tour after losing to the Bengals last year. There seems to be a budding rivalry between the two teams, and it looks better if the Chiefs win one, so that a rivalry does become the AFC. Because after the Bills losing, it takes out. With this also being said, it's bad for ratings if we see a repeat of the Super Bowl, which the Bengals were in last year. And even though it's not the Rams again, the Eagles were in it a couple years ago. And it also looks better if Mahomes has a budding legacy, so they can always compare him to Tom Brady after he retired. We also see the fact that the new age media is always talking about Patrick Mahomes. Even this video is around Patrick Mahomes and him winning and going to the Super Bowl. Even though it was questionable, we also see things like his throws always being posted on ESPN, all the talk shows always talking about him, because he's supposed to be the heir to Tom Brady. And for him to be the heir of Tom Brady, he's going to have to cement his legacy with the dynasty of the Chiefs, who, even though they lost Tyreek Hill this offseason, can still win without him. And that talks to the legacy of Pat Mahomes, who, after his top 3 receivers getting hurt this game and on a hobbled ankle, still found a way to win. Even though he was helped by the referees, that's not what the mainstream media is going to establish through their agenda. So let's ask the real question in the video. Was this NFL game rigged? To be honest, probably not. Referees are human, and they're going to make mistakes. But here's the thing. It's very, very possible that a referee had some insider knowledge or some type of friend that was betting on the game for the Chiefs to win. We saw it before in the NBA, and it wouldn't be surprising to see it also happen in the NFL. Now, is that skeptical? Yes. Were there a lot of bad calls? Yes. But here's the thing. As sports betting has become more legalized and mainstream, it seems that the referees have gotten worse and worse and worse. So let us ask ourselves the question. Is it just the NFL that's rigged? Or possibly rigged? Or is it all sports in general because of sports betting and all refs looking to make a profit off sporting events?